The court uncovered the inheritance my family was hiding from me for years. It's strange how something so small can detonate an entire family. For me, it was a pair of earrings. They weren't flashy or worth a fortune to anyone else, but to me, they were priceless. They were my great-grandmother's. Delicate gold filigree holding tiny, iridescent seed pearls, the kind of craftsmanship you just don't see anymore. She wore them on her wedding day, as did my grandmother and my own mother. They were more than just jewelry. They were a thread connecting the women in my family, a symbol of love and history that was supposed to be passed down to me. And my thieving sister-in-law, Emily, pawned them for wedding decorations. Before all this, my relationship with my brother, David, was complicated. He was the youngest, the golden child. Everything he did was celebrated, every mistake glossed over. I was the older, more responsible one, which really just meant my accomplishments were expected and my failures were my own. David could do no wrong in our parents' eyes, a dynamic that he learned to exploit from a very young age. This pattern continued into his adult life, especially when it came to his choice in women. He had a type: beautiful, flashy, and fundamentally hollow. He chased the women who looked perfect on the surface, the ones who cared more about the label on their purse than the person carrying it. He'd fall hard and fast, ignoring the blaring red flags that everyone else could see, only to get burned when their materialism inevitably eclipsed any genuine connection. I think, deep down, he never believed he deserved better. His self-worth was tied to having a woman who looked like a trophy on his arm. And then came Emily. When David introduced her, I saw the same pattern playing out again. She was charming, no doubt, with a bright smile and a laugh that could fill a room. But beneath that polished exterior was a desperate, grasping need for validation. She was obsessed with luxury, status, and the appearance of wealth. She spoke about her future with David not in terms of love and partnership, but in terms of the house they would buy, the parties they would throw, and the image they would project. She was, in her own mind, a modern-day Daisy Buchanan from The Great Gatsby, destined to float through life in a cloud of expensive perfume and effortless luxury. The only problem was, she didn't have the money to fund her fantasies. She and David were constantly living beyond their means, drowning in credit card debt to maintain a lifestyle that was pure illusion. David knew it, I know he did, but he enabled her. He was so terrified of being alone that he chose to ignore the gaping holes in their financial and emotional foundation. He convinced himself her obsession with material things wasn't a character flaw, but just a part of her ambitious personality. The proposal happened, and I tried to be happy for him, I really did. But watching Emily plan their wedding was excruciating. It wasn't a celebration of love, it was a production. She talked about it like it was the social event of the century. Every detail had to be bigger, better, and more extravagant than anyone else's. The most stunning venue, the most expensive flowers, the most sought-after caterer. The cost didn't matter. She'd max out credit cards, take out personal loans, do anything for that hit of admiration, for the perfect Instagram photos that would prove her life was as glamorous as she pretended it was. The earrings disappeared about a month before the wedding. I didn't notice at first. I kept them in a small, velvet-lined jewelry box in my top dresser drawer, tucked away for special occasions. I went to get them for a friend's anniversary party, and my heart just stopped. The box was there, but it was empty. I felt a cold dread creep up my spine. I tore my room apart, hoping, praying I had just misplaced them. I emptied every drawer, checked under the bed, looked in old purses. Nothing. My first thought was that I had been robbed, but nothing else was missing. My laptop, other jewelry, some cash I had in a drawer, it was all there. That's when the ugly suspicions started to form. Emily and David had been over for dinner a few days prior. I remembered Emily complimenting the earrings once, a long time ago. I remembered her asking to see them. I pushed the thought away, telling myself I was being paranoid. She wouldn't. She couldn't. But the feeling wouldn't go away. I have a small security camera in my room, more for peace of mind than anything. With a shaking hand, I pulled up the footage from the day they'd been over. And there it was. My stomach dropped as I watched the recording. Emily, sneaking into my room while the rest of us were downstairs. She moved quickly, quietly, going straight to my dresser. She opened the top drawer, and her hands rummaged around for a few seconds before pulling out the small velvet box. She opened it, looked at the earrings for a moment, and then slipped the box back into the drawer, empty. She tucked the earrings into her pocket and walked out, closing the door softly behind her. The whole thing took less than 30 seconds. I felt a wave of nausea. It wasn't just the theft. It was the betrayal. The casual, calculated way she did it in my own home. For days, I didn't know what to do. I was hurt, but I was also terrified of the fallout. I knew confronting her would ignite a war, and with David as her loyal soldier, I knew who my parents would likely side with. But I couldn't let it go. Those earrings were a part of my history, my family. They were meant for my future. I decided to wait until the next family dinner at my parents' house. I needed witnesses. I needed my parents to see what she was, without David having the chance to spin the story first. The night of the dinner, the air was thick with a tension only I could feel. I could barely eat, just pushing food around my plate as Emily prattled on about some last-minute, outrageously expensive addition to her wedding reception. I waited until there was a lull in the conversation, then I looked directly at her. "Emily," I said, my voice calmer than I felt. "Where are my great-grandmother's earrings?" The table went silent. Emily's smile faltered for just a second. "I'm sorry, what are you talking about?" she asked, with a little laugh that didn't reach her eyes. David immediately jumped in. "What kind of question is that? Why would she know where your earrings are?" "Because she stole them," I said, my voice hardening. I didn't wait for the denials. I pulled out my phone and placed it on the table. "I have a security camera in my room." I played the footage. The small screen showed the whole sordid affair, her sneaking into my room, going through my drawers, pocketing the earrings. The silence at the table was deafening. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. My father just stared, his face a mask of disbelief. Emily's face went pale, then red. It was David, my golden child brother, who spoke first. His voice was strained, defensive. "She did it for a good cause." I felt a surge of incredulous laughter bubble up in my chest. A good cause? What good cause could possibly justify stealing a family heirloom? Emily, finding her voice, lifted her chin defiantly. "I pawned them," she said, as if it were the most reasonable thing in the world. "We needed more money for the wedding, for the reception." That's when I snapped. The carefully constructed calm I had been holding onto just shattered. "You thieving bitch!" I screamed, standing up so fast my chair scraped loudly against the floor. "You pawned our great-grandmother's legacy for some damn party favors?" I turned to my parents, who were still sitting there like statues. "Call the cops. I'm pressing charges." "Oh no, you're not," Emily hissed. And then she moved. She crossed the space between us in 2 strides and slapped me, hard, across the face. The sting was sharp, shocking me into a moment of stunned silence. Before I could react, she grabbed a handful of my hair and started pulling, screaming nonsense. The scene devolved into chaos. In the struggle, she grabbed a heavy water glass from the table and, with a guttural scream, smashed it over my head. The world exploded in a starburst of pain and light. I felt a warm, sticky wetness begin to pour down the side of my face and neck. Red. I remember seeing red dripping onto the white tablecloth. Through the ringing in my ears, I saw my mother in the doorway to the living room, her face a mess of horror and tears, dialing 911. The police arrived quickly. When they saw me, bleeding from a head wound with my family standing around in stunned silence, they immediately separated us. I tried to explain what happened, my voice shaking. Emily was hysterical, interrupting, denying everything, saying I had attacked her first. Her frantic attempts to control the narrative just made the officers more suspicious. They asked to see the footage on my phone. They watched it once, then looked at Emily, then back at the phone. They didn't need any more convincing. They arrested her right there, in my parents' dining room. They read her rights as they cuffed her hands behind her back. The click of the handcuffs was one of the most satisfying sounds I have ever heard. Watching them lead my glamorous, wannabe socialite sister-in-law out of the house in tears was a dark, twisted kind of victory. I thought, naively, that this was the end of it. That justice had been served and my family would finally see the truth. I couldn't have been more wrong. That very night, David bailed her out. He didn't even call me. I found out from my mom, who was still in shock. It didn't seem to matter to him that Emily had not only stolen a precious family heirloom but had also violently assaulted me. His loyalty to her was absolute. In his mind, she was the victim. Later that night, he showed up at my apartment, his face contorted with rage. He didn't knock, just pounded on the door until I opened it. "What the hell is wrong with you?" he yelled, storming past me. He accused me of overreacting, of being dramatic and jealous. He told me the earrings weren't even worth that much money, a claim he just pulled out of thin air. "Emily was desperate," he shouted. "We needed the money for the wedding. It wasn't a big deal. She's family now." "She's family?" I shot back, my head throbbing from where the glass had hit me. "Family doesn't steal from you, David. And they certainly don't smash things over your head. Those earrings were about our history, our grandmother. It has nothing to do with money." I told him she was lucky I was only pressing charges for the theft, and not the assault. He just scoffed. It was like talking to a brick wall. He couldn't see past his own desperate need to protect her. So he started to spin. He began a calculated campaign to rewrite the entire event. He told our family I was being vindictive, that I'd always been jealous of Emily and their relationship, and that I was just trying to ruin their happiness. He even had the audacity to tell our extended family a complete fabrication, that I had given Emily the earrings as a wedding gift and was now maliciously trying to take them back. And, the most heartbreaking part? My parents started to believe him. David had always been their perfect son, and the idea that he would align himself with a thief and a liar was too much for them to accept. It was easier to believe I was the problem. A few days later, my phone rang. It was my mom. I knew what was coming, but I answered anyway. Her voice was tired, strained. After some awkward small talk, she got to the point. "I spoke with David," she said softly. "He told me what really happened." I stayed silent, my chest tightening. "He said you offered her the earrings, that this is all a misunderstanding that's gotten out of hand. Honey, this is tearing the family apart. I think you should apologize to Emily. If you two could just talk things through, maybe we can heal." Apologize. She wanted me to apologize to the woman who stole from me, assaulted me, and felt zero remorse. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She wasn't worried about me or the truth. She was worried about appearances. She was worried about the family looking broken. In that moment, I realized I was truly alone in this. My own mother was asking me to sacrifice my dignity for the sake of a comfortable lie. I hung up the phone. Soon the family was split down the middle. Half took David's side, believing his poisonous narrative. The other half stood by me, but even their support felt shaky against the tide of lies. I was heartbroken, but I was also furious. They wanted me to roll over and accept this injustice? Not a chance. I wasn't going to let them gaslight me into thinking I was the villain. It was theft. It was assault. It was that plain and simple. I hired a lawyer and told him I was pressing forward with all charges against Emily. If my brother wanted to protect his criminal wife at all costs, fine. But they were about to find out that I wouldn't be bullied into silence. The moment the legal process officially began, David escalated his campaign from family gossip to outright criminal activity. He wasn't just twisting the situation anymore. He was actively trying to fabricate a new reality. My lawyer warned me that this could get messy, but I had no idea just how far my brother would go. David's narrative to anyone who would listen was that I was a greedy, vengeful sister, consumed by jealousy. According to him, I couldn't stand to see my younger brother happy with someone as good as Emily, especially since I hadn't found a partner yet. He painted me as pathetic and bitter, claiming I was making a big deal out of a simple pair of earrings just to sabotage their wedding and their life together. It was working. Family members who had initially been supportive started calling me, gently suggesting that maybe I was being too harsh. "Is pressing charges really necessary?" one aunt asked. "It's just creating so much drama." The constant questioning, the doubt seeping in from all sides, it started to wear me down. But every time I felt my resolve waver, I would remember the footage of Emily in my room, or the feeling of glass shattering against my skull. Then, David took it a step further. My lawyer called me one afternoon with a grave tone in his voice. "He's trying to bribe people," he said. David had been contacting distant relatives and even a few family friends, offering them money to testify against me. He wanted them to say they had personally heard me admit I didn't care about the earrings, or better yet, that they had witnessed me casually handing them over to Emily as a wedding gift. It was a complete, utter lie, but the sheer audacity of it left me breathless. He was willing to pay people to commit perjury just to save his wife's reputation. The most chilling blow came when David's lawyer submitted supposed evidence to the court. My lawyer forwarded me the file, and I felt my stomach clench as I opened it. They were screenshots of text messages, supposedly between me and Emily. The fabricated conversation was expertly done. It looked like something I might have actually sent. In the messages, my number appeared to be telling Emily she could borrow the earrings whenever she wanted. One of the texts even read, "Honestly, you can keep them if you like. They'd look beautiful with your dress." It was poison in digital form. I had no idea how David had managed to create something so convincing, but it was terrifyingly clear that he would stop at nothing. Thankfully, my lawyer was sharp. He immediately suspected something was wrong. He managed to track down one of the relatives David had approached. Off the record, the relative admitted that David had pressured them, offering them a significant amount of cash to lie under oath. They had been scared and conflicted, but ultimately, the thought of committing perjury was too much. This admission gave my lawyer the ammunition he needed to investigate further. It wasn't just about winning a legal battle for David anymore. It was about destroying me in the process, making me out to be the villain so thoroughly that no one would ever believe me again. Every new lie, every twisted piece of evidence, was a reminder that the brother I grew up with was gone. In his place was a man who would rather see his sister ruined than admit his precious wife had done anything wrong. The day of the trial, the air in the courtroom felt heavy and thick with unspoken history. I walked in and saw David and Emily sitting at their table, whispering to each other. Emily looked nervous, but David shot me a look of pure, unadulterated hatred. My parents were sitting in the gallery, their faces etched with anxiety, positioned carefully in the middle as if to declare their neutrality, which felt like a betrayal in itself. My lawyer presented our case first. It was clean, straightforward, and damning. He played the security footage for the court. The video, blown up on a large screen, was undeniable. He presented the documents from the pawn shop, proving the sale of the earrings and linking it directly to Emily. He showed the photos of my head injury. The evidence of her theft and assault was irrefutable. I felt a small flicker of hope, but then it was their turn. David's plan began to unravel almost immediately. Their first witness was a distant cousin, the one David had successfully bribed. He took the stand and confidently began to tell the fabricated story of how he overheard me offering the earrings to Emily. But under my lawyer's sharp, methodical cross-examination, his confidence crumbled. My lawyer poked holes in his timeline, questioned details that didn't add up, and the cousin started to sweat. His story became shaky, his answers evasive. Finally, under the weight of the pressure and the threat of perjury, he broke. "He paid me," the cousin mumbled, looking at the floor. "David, he paid me to say that." A gasp rippled through the courtroom. The judge's eyes narrowed on my brother. The tension skyrocketed. Next, they called a family friend, who also confessed to being bribed after just a few minutes of questioning. Each testimony was a hammer blow, chipping away at the fortress of lies David had constructed. These were the people he had trusted to lie for him, but under the solemnity of their oath, the facade collapsed. The final, fatal blow came when my lawyer addressed the fabricated text messages. He brought in a digital forensics expert who testified, with absolute certainty, that the screenshots had been digitally altered. The expert showed the court markers of manipulation, inconsistencies in the pixelation, and metadata that proved the images were not authentic screen captures from my phone. He solidified, beyond any doubt, that David had intentionally created fraudulent evidence to deceive the court. The judge was appalled. He looked at my brother with utter disdain. "This court will not tolerate attempts to pervert the course of justice," he said, his voice booming through the silent room. He ordered David's immediate arrest for fabricating evidence, suborning perjury, and attempting to bribe witnesses. Two bailiffs approached the defendant's table. David's face was a picture of disbelief, then panic. He was led out of the courtroom in handcuffs, his desperate, elaborate plan having collapsed entirely around him. With David gone and his web of lies torn to shreds, Emily was left to face the consequences alone. The verdict was swift. She was convicted of felony theft. The evidence was simply too overwhelming. The judge awarded me financial restitution for the full insured value of the earrings. But that wasn't all. During the discovery process for the trial, my lawyer had unearthed something else, something I never would have found on my own. My grandmother had left me a small trust fund, an inheritance that my parents and David had decided to manage on my behalf, without ever telling me it existed. In their eyes, David was the more responsible one with money, a laughable thought now, and they had given him control. Or, more accurately, he had been blowing through it. He had used a portion of it to fund his and Emily's lavish lifestyle and hidden the rest, figuring I'd never find out. The court ordered that the remainder of the trust, along with punitive damages taken from David's assets, be transferred to me immediately. Learning about the hidden inheritance was the final, devastating blow. My own parents had been complicit in deceiving me. Walking out of that courtroom, I saw my mom's face. She was completely wrecked. For months, she had been trying to smooth things over, to save face. But now, seeing her golden child, her perfect son, being arrested and facing serious prison time, she looked gutted. The hope she'd been clinging to, that this could all be swept under the rug and we could go back to being a normal family, was gone. In its place was the harsh reality that her son was a criminal. For a split second, despite everything, I felt a pang of pity for her. Once the legal dust settled and the trust was finally transferred to my name, the money felt tainted. It was a constant reminder of the lies and betrayal. I knew I had to get away, to put as much physical distance as possible between myself and the wreckage of my family. So, I used part of that inheritance, the very money David tried to steal from me, and booked a one-way ticket to the Cayman Islands. The irony was not lost on me. While he was going to spend the next few years in a prison cell, I was going to use his stolen funds to find some peace for myself. The moment the plane touched down, it felt like I could finally exhale for the first time in a year. I wasn't constantly reliving the trial, or the fight, or the endless stream of lies. It was just me, the turquoise water, and the quiet hum of the breeze. I spent my days swimming in the ocean, reading books on the warm sand, and letting the sun bleach away the stress and sorrow. It was the beginning of a long healing process. Now David is in prison. Emily's reputation is in ruins, and she's saddled with his legal debts. My relationship with my family is complicated. I've cut ties with my brother completely. I don't think I can ever forgive him. My parents are trying to make amends. There have been tearful phone calls and long, apologetic emails. But it's hard. It's hard to forget how they chose his lies over my truth, how they prioritize their comfort over my well-being. The trust is broken, and I don't know if it can ever be fully repaired. But here, thousands of miles away from it all, I'm starting to build a new life, one that isn't defined by their drama. I'm finding my own peace, on my own terms. And that, I've realized, is a legacy worth more than any pair of earrings.